Hello, and welcome to my happy place, which is what I call my craft room. I am going to be playing today with Concord and Ninth's new Pretty Peacock stamp set. Super excited about these. I love anything and all thing birds, and this is right up my alley. I love drama. I love the dramatic colors that you can bring to a peacock, and I have the stamps, the dies, and the background pattern peacock inlay, which I will be playing with all of these today. Earlier, I made this card with it. It's not on a card back yet, but you get the gist. I'm going to be changing it up a little bit. I want a little more drama, so I'm going to be making the background different color. I'm going to be showing you how I made the spritz panel and punched out these peacock feathers with the spritz, and how I heat emboss the gold onto my peacock. So let's get started. I think the easiest way to start is by doing the spritz first so that we give it time to dry. So I'm going to grab my handy dandy box here that my husband made for me from, I think, just an Amazon box. And I'm going to grab some mixed media paper from scrapbook.com. All right. So I have picked out some spritz colors here. I have cracked pistachio, twisted citron, peacock feathers because obvi, and I have this one that I got from a Hero Arts card kit years ago. It's a gorgeous color. I don't know what color it is. It's this beautiful blue that has some iridescence in it. Yeah, it was one of those Joanne Fabric card kits from Hero Arts. Sorry, I can't do it more justice, but I love it, so I'm going to be using it. And then I also have the mica spray in the antique bronze. The metallic comes out really nice with the gold that I heat emboss into the peacock. So let us start with maybe the peacock feathers as our base. Just start playing with your colors. You can come back to that color if it ends up behind the scenes too much. That was a little bit of the cracked pistachio. You want to make sure you shake them up really good because the sparkle part always settles to the bottom, and that's the part you really want to come out more. All right, so that was twisted citron. All right, let's bring the blue. I feel like this one really kind of just makes it happen. Ooh, might have gone too far. Let's see. Kind of roll it around a little bit. I kind of want the mica to be bigger blobs. So I'm only going to spray it like halfway. Oops, this is a good squirt. Let's do the cracked pistachio a little bit more too. All right, I am going to let that dry because it is wet. Now that we have that off to the side and drying, let's stamp our peacock out. That we will need our Misty and some nice white paper to play with here. Have a scrap big enough. Maybe not for that tail though. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. I'm just gonna need a little bit of white for the peacock. I think that will be big enough. All right, so I am starting with the stamp that looks a little bit more solid. It only leaves the lines. The opposite is just the lines. So you go in and fill that in after you get your body ready here. Here we go. Pick that up. I'm going to start with peacock, obviously. I mean, how could you get more peacocky than a peacock colored in peacock? All right, and we'll probably have to stamp it a couple of times just to make sure we get a nice solid transfer. When you have a solid stamp like this, the ink tends to want to pull and move around, which isn't a problem. You just keep going till you get the desired effect. Almost there. You don't want to squish your stamp though, because these little lines would be really easy to fill in with ink. There, I think that looks really nice. So we'll put our top on, we'll get our water down, and we'll clean up our stamp. Okay. Now for the fun part. I am really bad at lining up these tiny little lines. So I decided the easiest way to do it is to heat emboss them. That way, if I am a little bit off, I can go in with a little bit of ink and fill in the lines that did not get filled correctly, and the embossing powder will resist, so it will look like a clean, crisp line. They're so hard to see. It's tiny. I need to come down a little bit. Dang it. Always wants to stick to my finger. Okay, I'm going to pick that up, and we're going to remember to de-static our paper, because if you have any oils from your fingers, your embossing powder will stick to it. This powder helps soak all that up and make it ready for just your Versamark ink. Here again, because it is an invisible ink, it is really hard to see when you stamp it. So I end up probably over stamping sometimes because I want a good clear image. And as I stamp it down, I will start to see where that ink is setting on paper. Here's where we hope and say a little prayer. While that's still wet, we'll pick that up, and I am going to use some gold embossing powder. And here's where the magic happens. It should just unveil itself. If it ends up being hot garbage, then I'll just stamp it again. It's not a big deal, especially this soon into a project. I mean, it's not like 4 hours in here. Yeah, so you can see where I didn't line up properly. You see a little bit of white in there, but I have a trick that will hide that once I get this heat set. I do see a couple of spots here that I want to try and brush some powder out of. I have a feeling that this chickie is going to be a little extra sparkly, but because there's like powder in here, but that's okay. All right, before I mess it completely up, I just touched it with that brush, and now there's a spot. That's gonna drive me nuts. Okay, all better. Now, let's get our embossing iron out and get it heated up. There we go. That turned out very nice. I'm gonna let that dry for a sec, or cool down. All right, here's the trick I was telling you about. If you see a little bit of lines peeking through where you just stamped, with the heat emboss, you can color right over it. So I have these little watercolor brushes from Hero Arts. They are a lifesaver. I love them so much. And I just pick up a little bit of the ink, and we can just go in, fill in these lines, and just take your microfiber brush and just get it all off of the gold. And that will dry back. Usually dries pretty nice. Now it looks like I lined it up perfectly the first time, and all of this will get cut out. All right, let's work on his tail now. I've grabbed a fresh piece of white paper. I'm gonna stick it down to my sticky mat. I'm also gonna use my magnet. I'm gonna grab the stamp that's more solid to lay down the foundation for our big tail, I'm going to position my stamp in the center. You always want to make sure you have good margin so that you have area to die cut when you're done stamping. All right. I am going to start with Peacock. And we're going to make a big peacocky tail. Stamp this big, I'm going to pull in my, I don't know, I like to call it my air hockey controller because that's what it looks like. We're going to have to stamp this a couple of times. Maybe one more time. Use the ink that's already on the stamp. Okay, well there's a couple of spots. I'm just going to go in with my watercolor brush again. Pick up a little ink and just erase that spot. And these inks dry back really nice, so if you get a spot that looks a little bit darker, it won't matter because once it's fully dry, it will blend right in. I try not to fuss too much because then I end up smearing something. All right, next we're going to do the heat embossing again. So let's clean our stamp. And we're going to get out the big tail stamp that fills in the little inner lines. Again, I'm going to move that gold. Look through your stamp, kind of line up all the little lines. I think that's good. Pick it up, and we need to anti-static our paper. Okay, here's hoping. We got everything lined up, and we are good to go. I'm going to use my Versamark, and I will stamp it a few times. Make sure that we have embossing ink on all of our little tail feathers here. Okay. Let's see. All right, I can kind of see the image. I know you guys probably can't. It is kind of a watermark that it leaves behind. Just one more time because I'm OCD like crazy here. All right. Let's see how we did. This can be the most fun part, or it can be the most heartbreaking sometimes. You just never know. I'm going to get my coffee filter out and my gold embossing powder. Cover the thing up. And let's see how we did. Oh, very good. Maybe a little bit more down here. And I see a little spot up here. Hopefully we can get that to stick. Yay! Oh, that's gonna look nice. All right, now for the fun part. We get to melt our powder and watch the magic happen. A little footprint here. I'm gonna heat up my iron again. All right, I am very happy with that. I even lined it up okay. I don't see any spots where I need to touch up the white really. So let's keep going. We're on a roll here. Okay, so now we have the feathers, but we also need to grab, before I do that, I don't need to spray water on. I'm gonna get some of the embossing powder off of my sticky mat too. Okay, we're not out of the woods yet though. We still have a couple more stamps on that tail. But now that we have the heat embossing down, it's a little less risky because we know we're not gonna get into those little intricate lines. Now I'm gonna grab these big loop-de-loos sure the top part of the feathers. And this should be cooled off enough now. We can work with it again. All right, we're gonna line up our loopies. This is kind of a tough part because that arch wants to have kind of a mind of its own. One side works and then the other one doesn't. Okay, I'm gonna just pick it up from there. All right, so I want to have a little bit of a darker green. So I'm gonna come down with juniper. I'm gonna pick up some juniper here. See if I can't. Well, maybe I don't want to risk it. Maybe I just call it good. It's not horrible. I just cannot get those stampies lined up. But I think that's okay because, I mean, in the wild, birds have all kinds of different markings. And we're just going to say this is a quirky natural peacock, I guess. Because it's really not worth sweating over. I think it looks nice. It's outlined. It's a little outline. Okay, we'll clean off our stamp and we'll go to our last color, which is going to be the midnight. Because I want to bring in the drama. I think midnight is one of my favorite colors. I just love that dark blue. It is yummy. Alright, that is going to be this little guy. It looks like half moons. We're going to line that up in the last little bit of white area. Okay, I think that looks alright. I guess we'll see. Oh no! Alright, let's... Lovely. I forgot to take that out of my misty. Alright, let's try that again. And we're lining it up. Last little bit of white. Okay, I think that looks good. Pick it up. I'm gonna come in with my midnight blue. Oh yeah. Didn't even really need a second tap, but I have to do it anyway. Okay. That is lovely. Alright, so now we have the body and the tail done. Next comes some die cutting. There's our two elements. Now we bring in our die cuts. And we go over and see how our panel is doing for our background. All right, this is still a little too wet to die cut. So what I'm gonna do is force it dry with my heat emboss gun. I think that's dry enough. Alright, so remember we're going to be cutting out all of the peacock leaves with our spritzed panel. I'm also going to be doing one in midnight so that I can have the latticey look about it. Okay, and then we're gonna also be lining up our peacock body with the die cuts. Let me go grab those. All right, I'm going to grab my cutting mat and let's line up our dies. We've got our little cock body right here. Okay, I'm going to put a little tape on that so it doesn't move around on me. And now I need to line up the peacock tail. A little bit of tape on it so it doesn't move around on me. And I'm going to go to my die cut machine and come back with hopefully some stuff that we can start assembling. Okay, got everything punched out. Have your poker tool over there with you when you go to your die cut machine, because all this stuff did not want to come out of my... Well, this might not be cut through all the way. All right, we're gonna have to take 2 on that one too. All right, we have everything all cut out. Good tip is make sure you have your poker tool over at the die cut machine with you, because this one wants to cling on. Oh, it looks like I have a little bit of the blue from the other panel sticking to this one. All right, let's see if we can pop this out. Okay, we got a few that want to stick in there still. We'll get those out quick. There we go, clean as a whistle. All right, so I'm going to start by popping all of these out. We're only going to be using a couple of them, and I don't want to necessarily keep them together. I want the splatters to be kind of random and different from all over the panel. I've made a little messy here. I'm going to clean it up real quick. There we go. All right, so I want this one to stay with me here. And we'll see how we did with our die cut bird here. There we go. Beautiful. Let's see. Now we need white paper to start our background on. All right, I have cut a white panel of 5.5 by 4.25, an A2 card, and I am going to put the blue down. Oh yeah, that's going to be very pretty. And I think I want to try and follow the same pattern that I did on my white on white, which is kind of this vertical. The challenge is going to be finding the pieces that fit properly on the top and bottom. I think I see a bottom piece here right out of the get-go. So we'll put them in there. Okay, now we're just going to grab some random pieces here. I have this upside down. There, that'll be easier to follow. Okay, and then we want, yeah, that's why it wasn't fitting right. They're in wrong. I'm loving how much darker this splatter panel is from my first one too. Brings a little extra drama. It almost looks like topaz. Okay, so our birdie's gonna go in there, so we want to find... Okay, now we're gonna need to find a bottom piece. That's a pretty one right there. It's got that extra pop of green. Beautiful. Loving that. Gorgeous. I am loving the blue lattice instead of the white on white. I just gravitate more towards those drama pops of color, you know, it just like really makes it snap. All right, so I think the next thing we do is just start gluing it all down. I'll probably speed this up because I can get pretty boring. Okay. So for our little peacock guy, I'm going to pop his body up to give him a little dimension. There we go. All right, so now we need to come up with the sentiment. And I too like the sentiment that came with the stamp set, Flaunt Your Feathers. I think that's very cute. I think I'm going to do that again, except this time instead of the black, I think I'm just going to go ahead and stamp it onto the midnight blue to match the background. I have a little extra piece of midnight here. Won't need much for the sentiment, so I'm just going to grab some scrap that I have. I'll get my Misty out again. I think I will heat emboss it in white, although gold would be pretty too. Let me think about that for a second. Do I want to do it in white or do I want to do it in gold? I think I want to do it in white. I want to make sure that we can really read it. But because this is a scrap piece of paper and it has been handled probably a lot, we are going to make sure that we de-static it. Okay, and let's go to our stamp set again. Grab our Flaunt Your Feathers. I love this sentiment because, I mean, it could be birthday, it could be graduation, it can be just because, it could be a thank you. You could do pretty much anything with this card. Oops, my magnets all want to say howdy to each other. Okay. We are de-static. Pick that up. Grab our Versamark. All right. And we get to play with more heat embossing. I am going to turn this over since we worked with gold on the one side. We want to not make sure we don't have little flecks of that in this. Oh yeah, that turned out really nice. Couple little flakes we want to try and sweep away. All right, I'm happy with that. There we go. All right, while that cools off, let's clean our stamp. And because I use so much de-static powder, I always have to hit my mat too, because that makes it less sticky. All right, I'm going to put my stamp away. I try not to have too much out at once so that I don't mingle the wrong stamp sets and stuff. All right, let's go to our dots and get out This one cuts out the sentiment. I want to make sure that we have that all lined up nice. Try not to put too much tape on the embossing because it can lift. All right, I'm going to run to my die cut machine and get that all chopped out. All right, we've got that all chopped out. Let's see how we did. Oh, it's lifting up the paper a little bit, but I think we're going to be okay. There we go. Crisis averted. And we chopped out cute little Flaunt Your Feathers. Okay. All that's left to do is I think I'm going to pop it up right here. Fits perfectly. So let's grab some of our little dots. Flaunt your feathers. Nice and straight. All right. All that's left to do is put it on a card base. So let's compare the two. We've got the more dramatic and the more subtle. I love them both. I think they each have a lot of kapow with all the shiny. I'm not going to put any sequins on either of them because they have a lot of shine with the embossing powder and the spray spritz. Yeah, I'm happy with how both of them turned out. They are not hot garbage. They threaten to be. This was a very intricate stamp set. Take your time with it and don't get frustrated. You can just always start over. And that is my card for today. If you liked watching me do this, please like and subscribe to my channel. I plan to make more videos and I want everyone to come along for the ride. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks. Bye.